Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to an unboxing for Zombicide Classic, the original version of Zombicide. We are going through one of the promo boxes. This is set number 1, Survivors and Zombvivors. So this was originally like Kickstarter stretch goal stuff that got added into these special boxes. So you can purchase them. This is way before CMON started just putting all the stretch goals into one big box. They kind of broke these up a little bit. So this is kind of an interesting one because we're going to get, as you can kind of see, we have a white character, a blue character, and a black character who all have regular and Zombvivor versions. And then we have 3 that we just have zombies because the regular Survivor versions came in a separate box with the regular Kickstarter set. So they're a little bit harder to find. But we'll definitely jump in and look over this. So if you're not for sure, or if you don't know what, excuse me, if you don't know what the Zombvivor version is, I'm knocking all my stuff over. What that is it's a mode where once your survivor dies, you can then flip over your play card, your dashboard here, and you can play as the zombified version of your character who has 5 hit points instead of 3, and gains a little bit of different abilities, or you can opt to just start with them. So it's just a neat extra way. They dropped it when they went to 2.0. So we're going to be looking over these characters, and we're going to have the cards for the 1.0, the original, the classic. If you have the 2.0 reboot kit, you can pick these up and you can play with them using that. You can also just pick these up and mix them in and just use these bigger play mats if you like. They're going to come with little clips that go on the top to keep track of your stats. And if you have any of the base games for Classic, they'll have little arrows that'll go on there to keep track of your points. Otherwise, you just have to use a die or a counter or something to memorize them. Alright, so we're going to start with a very interesting character. So this is one of the only times in all of Zombicide they've used a a character that was not based off of, there's a couple other ones, but there's very few of them, where they are basing it off of a comic book series, or a web comic rather, as opposed to a movie character or a celebrity, like a musician or a famous politician they do a lot of. So this is the Cardboard Tube Samurai. Who is based off of the Penny Arcade webcomics, which were very popular during the time of this. They're still around. They're still doing stuff, which is really awesome. I just don't know if they might be just as popular today as they were back then. I don't hang around with enough people that read webcomics, if they're still into that stuff. Yeah, so this is one of, in the comic, it's a gaming, more or less a gaming comic. They talk about video games and stuff, but they do hit on other topics as well. But then in the series, they had one character that got created, called the Cardboard Tube Samurai, which is an alter ego of one of the main regular characters. So yeah, he wields back in like feudal Japan, but he has a cardboard tube. So yeah, he's gonna start with the katana. So that's kind of fun to just start with an additional weapon. And then he has, in yellow, of course, he has his +1 action. Oops, I bumped my table. In orange, he has his 1 free melee action. He also gains Slippery. Slippery, of course, is an ability that lets you move for free out of zones of zombies without having to pay additional things. So if there's 3 zombies, you don't have to pay an additional 3 movement points. And then in red, he has a really interesting ability. He has +1 damage, but it's only with a katana. I mean, it's great he starts with 1, so that's very helpful for that, but it's not an ability you see common anymore. Usually it's just +1 melee damage. So that's kind of fun as well. +1 die for combat, or he has low profile. It's a survivor can't be targeted by allies, ranged attacks, and can't be hit by car attacks. Ignore him when shooting or driving through the zone, unless he targets everything. So it's kind of neat. So he's really a character that's meant to get up as a survivor, get right up into doing melee action, runs in his katana, starts doing extra damage. You can opt to either give him extra action or let him slippery so he can get out, and then when he gets to the last one, either let him do additional extra damage with his katana. Maybe if he has a better item, just give him an extra die, or give him low profile so that he can be in taking out zombies while your rangers are shooting at him. So that's definitely fun. So let's take a look at his miniature here. Now, it would have been cooler if it was yellow to match his overall aesthetic, but I'm guessing they probably already had a yellow character. So that's why they didn't do it. But yeah, it's a very stoked. Also interesting because lots of characters usually have some sort of like almost action or like end of an act, like they just got done firing and they're holding their gun or their weapon in like a ready pose, and he's just all just nonchalant there. So then we are also going to get the Zombvivor version of him, so that he still has all his stuff on him. So his stats stay relatively the same. He starts with his katana, but now all the Zombvivors, instead of having a free action in yellow, have a specific action. So they don't get, so it slows them down a little bit for the option that they also have extra health. So yeah, instead of getting to do anything on his turn, he can only do melee actions. But now he has in orange, he keeps slippery, but he gains toxic immunity. So this lets you help, lets him not be affected by the toxic zombies from, the toxic blood spray from Toxic City Mall zombies. So it really, yeah, if you're playing with that set, he can run right in and just whack these guys left and right. He doesn't have to worry about them exploding and hitting him. Although if you're not playing with any of those toxic zombies, it limits you to only having slippery for that turn. But once he gets to his red, he has +1 die for combat, low profile, but he trades his plus damage for his katana for straight up super strength, which lets him roll all his attacks do 3 damage instead. So that's actually better because now he's not limited to just using katanas. So very cool. Again, you can always start with these guys as zombies right away, as opposed to doing it if you like a little bit maybe easier game. They have a little less options in the yellow area because they don't get that extra free action throughout the rest of the game, but they have some really fun extra abilities. Now let's look at his zombified version. Let's see if my camera wants to focus today. There we go. Yeah, so there he is. His shirt's ripped open. I love that they have the bandages around the waist. Very, like, traditional samurai thing. Here's this cardboard tube. Yeah, he lost his hat, though, unfortunately. Alright, so let's hop into our next character. If you are also from the Zombicide stuff, you know that they usually do homages to people. So here is, of course, Chuck Norris. I'm not sure if he's specifically homaging to any one thing or not, or if it's just Chuck Norris in general, but his name is Chaz. So he starts with 1 free melee action. Let's just quick look at his miniature quick. So you look at his badassery. I'm surprised they didn't do him like in a kicking pose instead, like doing like a split out kick. I know it would have been hard to maybe pose that. But he's got his double guns, his jean looking vest. Yeah, definitely badass. Alright, let's jump back into there. His jean jacket with the American flag, you can't see in the miniature, unfortunately. So yeah, he starts with 1 free melee action. So he gets an additional free action right after the turn, but it has to be melee. In orange, he has another free melee action. So yeah, he now has 3, by the time he hits orange, he has 3 extra actions he can take. Although 2 of them have to be melee. That's definitely crazy, you just running and whack people. Or you could opt to give him 1+ dice roll for melee. Maybe there's not enough zombies left alive at that point, or where he's at to afford to give him an extra free melee. In red, he has +1 damage for melee. +1 free melee action, so he could gain a 4th melee action, essentially. Or he gets Born Leader, which lets him give an additional action to another character. So, and they have to use it by the end of their turn. So that's pretty cool, too, that he gets that. But yeah, just giving out free actions left and right is pretty crazy. I was trying to remember. Yeah, each survivor gets you 3 actions at the blue level. So, yeah, right off the bat, he already has 3, so he can gain 4, 5, 6, 7 actions by the end of his die. So he could sit like that. If you're a group of zombies, he could definitely just go melee all out and take all of them. Although, lots of times I think the +1 damage might be better, but it depends on what weapon he gets. Alright, if we flip to his zombie version, here, in this one, picture-wise, he drops all his guns. He's going all out brutal. But in the miniature, they gave him a little semi-automatic. But his shirt got ripped open. Which they even put some, like, claw marks on his chest. Little subtle things like that. Shirt's ripped up in the back. I like the idea of these Zombvivors, though, is if you paint them all, and I say this in all these different videos, but I'm going to keep saying it, is if you paint them, you can then use these as extra zombies as well. Oh, now we got more zombies on the table to fight against. Different poses versus just the office worker or the waiting address. So here we have +1 free melee action skill. In yellow, he also gains 1 free melee action. So it actually technically gets worse there because it's still melee action, but he uses his option to do other things. In orange, +1 die roll for melee, and is that all you've got? Is all you've got lets you discard 1 equipment card per damage you would take. Before you take damage to negate that damage. So if you take 2 hits, you could discard 2 item cards to stay alive a little bit longer. So that's very helpful as well. And then red, +1 die for combat, +1 free melee action or boring leader. So yeah, he trades his extra damage for just an extra die in combat. So yeah, stuff changes up a little bit, enough to make them feel like at least a semi-new character. Alright, up next we have another iconic character. We have Troy, who, if you're not familiar with who Troy is, this is Bruce Campbell as Ash from the Evil Dead Army of Darkness series. What's also interesting about this is, as a note, is there's also a version of him, Ash, in the Black Plague, which is a fantasy series. So he's one of the few characters or actors, either way you want to look at it, that has been in multiple Zombicide games. There's a couple that have, but very few have. They usually pick, there's enough people out there, they pick extra stuff. But it makes sense for that because he's also in Army of Darkness, which takes place in the medieval settings. So what does good old Troy have? Who wants to focus on? So there you go. So he's got an axe there, but he's also got his boomstick. You know, they didn't give him, like, they didn't go too crazy with him. Like, they didn't give him, like, a metal hand or anything like that. Or, like, the axe, they didn't, like, throw a chainsaw in there. So they're, you know, but he does wield an axe in the movie. I have to almost be positive he wields an axe at some point. So he starts with the sawed-off shotgun. So now he does not come with this. So if you are for some reason playing a starter set that does not have that sawed-off shotgun, you guys have to give him maybe a different gun instead. In orange, he has +1 dice roll to combat, and tough will let you ignore the first damage he would take each turn. So as long as there's only like 1 or 2 guys, he can easily take a hit. Not a big deal. And then red, 1 free melee action or 1 free range action. Still very optional what you want to do. And then he also has webbing, which lets him treat any card he has in reserve as if it's in his hand. So this is very nice because someone like him could then have his shot off he starts with. Then later on, if he finds a really good axe or another melee weapon that does something a little bit better, but maybe has better short range or better long range, he can quickly flip to them other weapons without having to, like, stop and spend an action to rearrange his inventory. So that's kind of cool there. If you ever play the red zone, where once you get all the way to that 43 and you flip back around and you get back over there, you could do 1 ranged, 1 melee action, or do one of them with webbing, which is pretty cool. Alright, then if we flip him over, we get his zombie version. So his is one of the few that really looks, I think he looks more zombie than some of the other guys. But that's because I think they tried to make him look like a Deadite from the Evil Dead series versus just a stereotypical zombie. And focus. I don't know why this just doesn't focus very easily. If I move this out of the way, is that causing it might be his dark color sometimes. There we go. Yeah, sometimes the dark colors don't focus so well. But yeah, he's still wielding his axe. He dropped his gun, but now I like he's kind of like trudging it along versus like getting ready to like wield it. Shirt got untucked. But that is his miniature there. So there is undead Zombvivor Troy, who has still starts with this sawed-off shotgun. But now he has one free ranged action instead of his any action. In orange, he has +1 die roll for combat. And Zombie Link. Zombie Link means whenever you draw a spawner card, it's an extra activation card. He gets an extra full turn before they get to activate. So yeah, depending on how often you draw them, this can be a really great ability. But might not come up all the time. But having a full extra free turn at any time, even once or twice, is probably pretty great. In orange has one free melee action, webbing, and rotten. So he trades out his range, which he has down yellow now, kind of, for rotten ability. Which rotten is a special thing that says, at the end of his turn, if he had not taken any combat action, ranged or melee, driven a car, passengers don't count, I guess, and not produced a noise token. You place a rotten token next to it. As long as it has this token, is ignored by all and any zombies, and is not considered to be a noise token. Zombies don't attack and live and walk past them. Survivor loses his rotten token whenever he takes a combat action or makes noise. But you still have to spend extra points to move out of the way of other zombies. So that's kind of neat. So it kind of lets him blend in with everybody else. So you can use it like just, you stop somewhere, you're like, I'm not going to be able to get past this horde. So you could do is just stop, not take any extra action. You can still search. You can still open doors if you can do it quietly. You can rearrange items. You can get in and out of cars, stuff like that. You can move around as much as you want, just as long as you don't make a combat action or anything that makes noise. So yeah, pretty fun there. So those are our three main ones in here. Now, again, these other three are ones we only have the Zombvivor versions of, but we're going to look at their regular cards anyhow, just to kind of see what the differences are. So our first one here is Dave, who's based off of Sheldon from the Big Bang Theory, whose real name I don't remember off the top of my head. So then, yeah, we're going to flip him over, and then he has his Zombvivor version, which is funny, because he has a molten cocktail right there, a Molotov, and then in his zombie version, he's burning his arm off after he dropped all that. So there's his miniature. Yeah, so the other three regular versions were part of a different box set of, like, straight-up just stretch goals that got added into the core Kickstarter pack. So that's what they did. The core box came out, then they had a couple of Kickstarter guys that were done, and then they put some of these guys in boxes. And then these guys, and unfortunately, got separated into two sets, so they're a little bit harder to track down. But yeah, let's look at what Dave here does. And there's our yellow that we could have used for Cardboard Tube Samurai. So Dave has 2 cocktails are better than 1. This means whenever he uses a Molotov, he gets to roll a die. No, this actually changed. So I'm thinking of the newer rules. This one for core games says whenever Survivor gets 2 Molotov cocktails whenever he creates a Molotov. Because in this game, you have to create the Molotovs. I was thinking the 2.0, it switches up this ability to be whenever you throw a Molotov, you roll a die, and I think if you get a 5 or a 6, you get to keep that Molotov. So basically, it's like you had 2 of them. And then he has his one action, plus one reroll per turn, and slippery. So he can kind of play the odds or escape. And then plus one die for a ranged, plus one dice roll for ranged, or lucky. And lucky lets him, anytime he takes an action, he can reroll dice. And then he has to take new results. But he also gets the extra plus one reroll turn on that as well. So that's basically his thing's all about luck and strategy. Because dice rolls luck. When he flips to Zombicide, he keeps his 2 cocktails are better than 1, but now his action becomes a free search action. Helps him find Molotovs, but now it's all he can do. He gets 1 reroll per turn, and Rotten. And in red, plus 1 die roll for range, Lucky, and Zombie Link, who is seeing all of those as well. Alright, our next Zombvivor version is we have Nick, who is Bruce Willis from Die Hard. Why can't I think of his name either? Oh boy, that drives me nuts. If I can't remember an actor's name sometimes, that's fine. I get that, but it's weird that I can't remember his character's name. So yeah, here's his Zombvivor version. Outer shirt collar, you can see his straps on there. He's got his walkie. He's got his little gun there. He's got his badge hanging off. So cool. So let's look at what his stuff does for good old Nick here. He starts with tough, so that lets him ignore that first point of damage. Yeah, from any zombie during a phase. In orange, he has plus 1 die for combat and slippery. And in red, plus 1 free movement action, born leader, and he has ninja. So ninja's ability that's not in the later 2.0, at least not called ninja. So it says survivor makes no noise at all. His miniature is not counted as a noise token. His use of equipment or weapons does not produce noise tokens either. A survivor may choose not to use a skill at any time if he wants to be noisy. So that's a very interesting ability because it lets you basically move, especially a slippery, you can move around the board pretty quickly without having to worry about making extra noise. It's the guy you send in to kick down doors, and it's supposed to represent his die-hard ability of like him sneaking through the building and stuff and not being noticed, and that's the idea there. Alright, then his other side, his zombie version, which is the one we have a figure for, he has tough, 1 free ranged action, plus 1 die for combat, and rotten. And then his last one, he has born leader, low profile, and ninja. So he can either help someone else out, sneak around, or he can be up in the middle and not have to worry about ranged attacks. So very cool. I like that they did take off his shoe on here too. And the miniature is missing his shoe as well. Kind of again, goes back to the character. Yep, it's not coming to me. Alright, then our last character is another character that we actually have gotten probably, I think, a few versions of, at least 2. This is El Cholo. So this is Danny Trejo, or usually Machete. He actually got his own boxing 2.0. You can check out that video if you'd like. And then we looked at his Zombvivor version. We're still carrying both of his machetes around. So let's look at this miniature. So there he is with his machete. He's kind of holding the one, and then he's sort of dragging him behind him. Does go kind of slumpish. Shoulder got tore up a bit. But alright, so El Cholo has some extra abilities here. He says he starts with 2 machetes. That's crazy. One of the few guys that starts with 2 dual wielding weapons. In orange, 1 free combat action or plus 1 die for melee. So depending on how you want to do that. And then in red, plus 1 damage with his machetes. Plus 1 free combat action or plus 1 die roll for combat. Again, your melee guy. He's going to run in and just start whipping his machetes around. It's just in orange, do you want to have one extra die to potentially hit more often? Or do you want to have another full action? I'm already rolling 3 dice. Do you just want to roll another, you want to roll 4 dice? Or do you want a chance to roll another 3 dice as a separate attack? And the same thing when you get to the last one. Extra damage is always great, but maybe you have a better weapon than your machetes. So you might just want the extra combat action. Or you're fighting weak enough guys, there's just a ton of walkers out, or runners that can only take 1 hit. So you don't need the extra damage. Options there. Then if we flip to his Zombvivor side, he keeps his 2 machetes. He gets his 1 free melee action. In orange, 1 die for melee, and collector fatties. We're also now called brutes now. They got rid of the that other term. So this says, survivor doubles experience gain each time he kills a zombie of a specified type. So this isn't too bad, because it's like, yeah, it's great. He's going to gain some extra for taking out some of the bigger guys. With 2 machetes, it'll be a lot easier. But you don't want to worry about getting too much experience too fast. Otherwise, you'll just push everyone farther. But at least it's in the orange, which is the hardest one to get, the longest road. So it might just be able to push him up into red, but you don't want to have him way up there in red when everyone else is just barely into orange. Otherwise, they're not going to have the extra skill right away. But at least the brutes and the fatties aren't out as often. And then in red, he has 1 free combat action, plus 1 die roll for combat, or super strength, which will definitely let him help take out them bigger threats a lot easier. So yeah, that is pretty cool there. That is all of our characters for this set. So yeah, is this something you should worry about picking up? If you want some extra characters, it's pretty nice. Again, if you don't have that reboot pack for Season 2, so you get the other character cards for them, you can always just pick these up and you can play with the bigger cards. It's gonna make it look a little weird on the table, but it's an extra bunch of characters. So there's set 1, Survivors and Zombvivors. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hit me up in the comments. See you guys later. Bye.